Let's see, what is today? July the 3rd, which means tomorrow is July the 4th. Time continues to march on.
Your dog will go crazy at night.
Yeah. Oh my. We'll have 2 dogs in our bed. Well, today we're up to 93. 93 lessons on YouTube. This is Hosea chapter 10. And as is our customary format, we'll review number 9. Got a sign of the times, scripture of the day, and then we'll do Hosea chapter 10. So let's open class with a word of prayer. And Gary, would you open class with a prayer for us?
Father, thank you for this opportunity to get together and to learn of your future events. I don't know anywhere else you could absorb this information except in this class. And we thank you for the opportunity to hear it. Thank you to Carl for taking all this time and all this energy to bring those words to us. And I pray for the ones that are here today. I pray for our church and our families, and keep us safe in the coming days. We pray in Jesus' name.
Amen. Thank you. Okay. You remember our overall thesis in this is that Hosea seemed to be directed at the northern kingdom just before they went into captivity and bondage. But Hebrew mind, the word prophecy means more than just a singular event. It's more like a pattern of events. And so if Israel in those days was guilty of all the things which Hosea accused them of, it is entirely possible that Israel in the end times may fall into a similar trap. And so what I'm pointing out to you here is all the similarities between the admonitions, the judgments of God against the northern kingdom. It seems as though he has judged the northern kingdom and it has fallen on us. And when I say us, I'm talking about Great Britain and the United States, basically because of Genesis 48, where it says, "Let my name be on them," talking to Ephraim and Manasseh. So if you find wherever the tribes Ephraim and Manasseh settled in the end times, you might find this prophecy applicable to them, which I believe it is. And I believe that we are that final expression of Israel in the end times. And I got more evidence of that today for you. So at any rate, in chapter 9 we found Israel played the harlot by forsaking God and going after false gods. Well, what has our nation done? Have we forsaken the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Absolutely. Who is the God du jour? Well, that would be the God of the Islamics, because they are treated better than we are, and yet they're trying to kill us. Now, explain to me the logic there.
There is none.
We're talking about gross deception here of the whole population. Remember what the preacher said this morning? You get all these people together in a room, you get 9 of them to swear to God that this line is shorter than that line, and the 10th guy sitting there, eventually he puts up his hand too. Well, that line's shorter even though it's longer. I mean, it makes no sense. But that's what's happening in our country as I see it. The majority is being swept along by a determined minority. And they're holding up their hand. Oh yeah, well there's no difference in God. This God's as good as your God. They're all the same gods. Meaning that there is no God, basically. So at any rate, hey, we see an analogy right there immediately. And for harlotry, Israel not only went into captivity, they also went into bondage. And they were destroyed. They were taken off land. And as you will recall, they had it pretty good for a long time. They were prosperous. And they were criticized. Because during their prosperity and their abundance, did they acknowledge the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? No, they said it was Baal. He's our God, Baal Peor. Ephraim was given the job of being a watchman, but he failed miserably. And Ephraim was a euphemism for the whole northern tribes, because Ephraim was the dominant tribe. And at least 38 times during the prophecy of Hosea, he uses that word Ephraim as an indicator of the whole northern kingdom. They were to be a watchman. What were they to be watching for? Well, certainly for one thing, apostasy, false gods, we're to be watching for the enemy coming. And did they do a very job? No. Did they rely on the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? No, they relied on their alliances with other people, namely Egypt. And it was a false alliance. We got any false alliances going on today? Very interesting. Israel questioned by God, what will you do on the appointed time of the Lord, the days of punishment? What will you do on the appointed time, meaning the festival of the Lord, meaning a holy day? And it didn't say so, but I'm pretty sure what it was referring to was Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, because that was the appointed time. And was there a fulfillment in that northern kingdom time, 722? Well, in a sense, you can say there was. There was a fulfillment because Shalmaneser V came down and took them into captivity. So there was a fulfillment, but it didn't occur on Yom Kippur that I can recall. Now, that makes me think, maybe there is a Yom Kippur to come in which there is a day of punishment foretold and a day of reckoning. We know that there is. We've got the book of Revelation now. And we know that there's a time of great tribulation coming and a punishment for those who do not know the Lord. Their worship of Baal Peor was a detestable thing in the eyes of God. And a corollary to our age, the worship of Allah is a detestable thing in the eyes of God because Allah is not God. Allah is a manufactured God from the Arabs, and particularly Muhammad. We're going to see a little bit of some interesting things about that here today. For their iniquity, God would destroy the children of their womb. And I pointed out last week, we have abortions now. We are destroying the children in the womb. And one would assume that that was a free will of the people in the population, but it may be a fulfillment of this passage, a curse. You are cursed when you do things like that. And from 1973 to 2007, 53 million abortions were conducted in this country. And some of the ways in which they conduct abortion, you don't even want to know about it. I don't even want to know about it. So our country stands in line for the wrath of God, in my humble opinion. Any questions about number 9? Yes.
It said, for their iniquity, the last line there, God would destroy their children in the womb?
Yes. God is doing the destruction. So it may very well be that this abortion business may be God ordained as a punishment, even though we think it's a convenience. I'm not even prepared to discuss that one, how God might intervene in this whole issue. We assume that God is, he certainly can't be happy with it, but on the other hand, it may be a form of punishment. Although, and have you ever known a person that's had an abortion? There is some severe guilt that goes along with that lasts in an entire lifetime. Never get over it. It is a true punishment, and it's an awful thing. Now, like any other sin, that's forgivable. As Calvin says, we are all totally depraved, all of us. And even if you've been involved in that sort of thing, no different than any of the rest of us. We're all in the same category as far as God is concerned. Yes.
We know he's allowing it.
Yes. He's either allowing it or he is directing it. And I'm not sure which is how you distinguish between the two, because God is in control of all things. And even things that are as reprehensible as an abortion. So, but at any rate, the point being, all sins are forgivable, but all sins have consequences. And to those who are involved in that particular sin, there's a pain in your heart that will never go away. Now, moving right along. Allah is Baal or Satan, as a cult of Islam's practices and rituals make clear. The evidence that Allah or the Lord was a moon deity is rather overwhelming. A crescent moon adorns every mosque and flag of Islam. The moon deity Hu-Baal was the chief lord of Mecca. And Baal is another name for the Babylonian god of sin or the moon god. You ever wonder where that crescent came from? Well, there's an insignia of ancient times. You'll see the crescent moon in the upper right-hand portion. That's the Babylonian sin god. And here you see another symbol from the land of Ur. You recall Ur of the Chaldees? That's where Abraham came from. And so you can see that crescent moon's been around a long time.
It's on there.
2030 BC.
Oh, BC, I gotta say AD.
That's long. Yeah, that's in the future, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, that's what it said, though. The first one said AD.
Well, yeah, 2013 AD. Okay, the Muslims are not good with evidence, with reality or truth. Muhammad's family were the caretakers of the Baal shrine, and Baal was the lord of Ilah of Mecca, Ilah, which became Allah. The main idol out of 360 worshipped by the Meccaans. That's not Mexicans, that's those of Mecca. He had a consort or sex slave by the name of Alat, the sun goddess, and two daughters, Uzzah and Manat, Venus and the moon. They were worshiping the celestial objects. The worship of the constellational bodies was common in the Near Eastern practices. The worship of the moon in its various phases is a well-known historical fact. Hub-Al or Hub-Allah or Hu-Baal is simply the moon god of Mecca. Baal is another name for the Babylonian moon god Sin. Baal is often mentioned in the scripture as linked with evil, including sexual depravity, child sacrifice, bull worship, polygamy, tyranny, and murders. So there you have it. Scripture of the day. How long will this be in the heart of the prophets who prophesy lies? Indeed, they are prophets of deceit of their own heart, who try to make my people forget my name by their dreams, which everyone tells his neighbor, as their fathers forgot my name for Baal. If that's not an indictment of our country, I don't know what is. We have forgotten the name of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but we know who Baal is today, only we know him as another name, Allah. And in the name of Allah, countless crimes have been committed, murders without end. And they seek out not armies to murder, but innocents to murder. This world is just gone crazy. Okay, Hosea chapter 10. Israel is an empty vine. He brings forth fruit for himself. According to the multitude of his fruit, he has increased the altars. According to the bounty of his land, they embellished his sacred pillars. Israel, of course, is regarded as a vine, and it was planted in the promised land to be fruitful, to be bountiful. And of course, Israel attributed her prosperity to false gods, and that's one of the reasons why she went into captivity and into punishment. And of course, the next question is, how does this apply to our country? Well, have we increased our altars? As the minister pointed out this morning, the altar is where you gather to worship, where you put the center of your life. If you were to be asked the question, what is the center of the life of the typical American? Would it be church? Or would it be music?
Golfing.
Golf. Now, meddling again. There you go, meddling.
Don't say fishing next.
Fishing. Boy, we're gonna. Gary, we're gonna have to have our own class. I can see that this group is out of control.
All you guys out. How about
about just entertainment?
Yeah.
Entertainment. Well, sure, it satisfies the desires of the eyes. Be sure and put things in there that have absolutely no meaning, like the outcome of the Super Bowl or whatever it is, wherever your altar is that you've gathered to worship. I mean, who in the world would pay $20,000 to go watch a ball game? I mean, this is insanity. This is clearly an altar of worship in my estimation. And, that's where all the money goes, to these big altars of worship, like these coliseums where people pay billions of dollars to build a coliseum to go watch a ball game. The analogies here, you can make up plenty of your own. Their heart is divided. That word divided means slick, deceitful, or hypocritical. And now they are held guilty. He will break down their altars and he will ruin their sacred pillars. Well, guess what's about to happen? We've got a time called the tribulation coming up, and I will guarantee you that this passage will be fulfilled during that 7-year run. Is our nation hypocritical? Oh, no, we're absolutely true and straight as all right. Our money says, in God we trust. Anybody believe that anymore? No, in money we trust. Do we have any altars of worship? Well, go pick them. And when what do we place our faith? Do we place our faith in God? No.
Ourselves.
And if we placed our faith in our money, we're $20 trillion in debt. Boy, that makes a lot of sense. Put your faith in money, which they continue to print out like toilet paper. Pretty soon that's about all it's going to be worth. And for now they say we have no king because we do not fear the Lord. And as for a king, what would he do for us? Well, in the time, the northern kingdom never had one good king, not a single one. I maintain that we have had good kings here, and we have had bad kings. But as we'll find out, it's very difficult for a nation of liars to elect a righteous king. They have spoken words, swearing falsely and making a covenant. Thus judgment springs up like hemlock in the furrows of the field. Israel, the people, were frequently taking each other to court, trying to get something for nothing. They were like a poisoned plant in the field. They abandoned the sanctity of commitments. They bore false witness. No sanctity in marriage, a marriage contract, a business contract. Does this sound like anything you have heard before? Used to be you could make an oral agreement with somebody and your word was your bond. Just a handshake and you could count on it. I knew when I grew up, we did a lot of things that way. But now you make an oral agreement, well, I changed my mind. So take me to court and sue me. And so people are sue happy. That's why you see all these lawyers on TV. Oh, did you have a bad experience with talcum powder? Well, be sure and call us, and we will sue the pants off of those people that made talcum powder. Those evil doers. Well, if this, I don't know exactly how the times were at the times of that northern kingdom, but boy, I know how they are here today. And if there was ever a litigious nation, we got one. The inhabitants of Samaria fear because of the calf of Bethaven, for its people mourn for it. Its priests shriek for it because its glory has departed from it. Well, what they're saying there is, they erected 2 golden calves, one at Bethel and one at Dan, and that's where you were supposed to go to worship. Worship these calves, which, once again, is a big mystery. Why in the world would you worship a calf or a bull? And I'm sure this had something to do with the Apis bull of Egypt, where they came out of. Like you say, you can take the people out of Egypt, but you can't take Egypt out of the people. And so apparently they have continued on this worship of this calf, even to the days of, the northern kingdom. And that word Bethaven literally means house of betrayal, which was a euphemism for Bethel, which was supposed to mean the house of God. And the Hebrew word for priests here is uniquely used only for the priests of Baal. So we've got, once again, in that time, Baal was the object, the deity to be worshipped, was not the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but a manufactured God. We got the same thing happen today. And remember, Jezebel and Ahab, two of the most evil people ruling the northern kingdom. Jezebel brought in 100 priests of Baal into the land. She was an evil person, deceitful. All of the negative attributes that we have seen here. I wasn't going to say anything. I don't want to skew anyone's political vision here, but it sure sounds like that when you bring in 10,000 people from the land of Syria, which is in the middle of ancient Assyria, well, you know, as Christine brought out last week, her observation that, well, Israel was dispersed into the nations because of their sin. Today, you could make an argument that the nations are dispersed in Israel because of their sin. You go to places and just think, Dearborn, Michigan. You go up there and walk through the street and carry a Christian flag and see how far you get. That is a region of Islamic faith, and they practice Sharia law. There are places in Houston which are totally Vietnamese. The signs even have Vietnamese language on them, not even English. There are places in the country where China has come to visit and stayed. Huh?
Great Britain.
Oh, Great Britain.
This is disaster.
They're even farther down the deep end than we are. But the argument that the nations are dispersed in us and they are here not for our good, you can make that argument, I think, today. So, at any rate, everything so far that I have seen in God's indictment of the northern kingdom applies 1-to-1 for our country. The idol shall also be carried to Assyria as a present for King Jareb, and Ephraim shall receive shame, and Israel shall be ashamed of its own counsel. Well, no doubt that will happen at some point, that we will be ashamed of our own counsel. And although we may not go into Assyrian captivity, I think you got a good argument that Assyrians are here, and we will be held captive at some point by them. So, as for Syria, her king is cut off like a twig on the water. When Shalmaneser V came into the land, Hoshea, who was the king of the northern kingdom at that time, I tried to find secular evidence that he was killed, because I'm sure he did. You know, the Assyrians were brutal people. And you'll find relief in stone cut by them of when they went into a land and conquered the people. It shows them cutting their heads off. Very common. And so they were a brutal people. And Hoshea, who was the king of the northern kingdom, had made an alliance with him that he was going to give them tribute. And then he stopped giving them tribute. You know that did not make him happy. And so, although I can't find secular evidence for it, I am pretty sure that Hoshea was killed by those Assyrians. And so, fulfilling this, that he will be cut off like a twig on the water. And the high places of Aven, which literally means vanity, the sin of Israel shall be destroyed. The thorn and the thistle shall grow on their altars. They shall say to the mountains, cover us, and to the hills, fall upon us. When did they ever say that? It just brings to my mind that passage in Revelation during the beginnings of the tribulation, where it says, and the kings of the earth, the great men, the rich men, the commanders, the mighty men, every slave and every free man hid themselves in the caves and in the rocks and the mountains, saying to the rocks and the mountains, fall on us, hide us from the face of him who sits upon the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb, for the great day of his wrath has come, and who is able to stand? I am pretty sure now that this prophecy was directed to those who are going through the tribulation period, because Israel, not all of Israel is going to be saved. Many will be cut off and die. A few will be passed through the fire. But we do know there will be a group that will come through it. It's a big number. And all the indications are in Revelation that they will be caught up, taken out. And so there's at least 2 raptures that I can think of, and actually there's more. O Israel, you have sinned from the days of Geba. There they stood. The battle of Geba against the children of iniquity did not overtake them. Will not war overtake them? And of course, you know the situation at Geba, mentioned in Judges 19. This was a war against the tribe of Benjamin over gross sexual sin. And so, the wrath of God's coming because of gross sexual sin. In the USA, are we guilty of gross sexual sins?
None.
I can't see any.
No. No. Pornography.
Does anybody know the history behind the dropping of pornography as illegal?
Oh, when it became legal?
Yeah.
I can't do when it became legal, but here's one thing I can tell you how big it is. How big is the pornography business in the USA? In 1973, the pornography business in the USA did $15 million worth of work. $15 million. How big is it?
Billions.
$13 billion per year, bigger than the NFL, the NBA, or the Major League Baseball. $13 billion. Billion dollars.
I would think that 1960, when the Warren Commission and they.
Oh, the freedom of speech
Yeah.
issue came up.
When that kind of started.
Yeah. But you can see when the leaf began to turn, and that was with the lawsuit by,
What's the guy that got shot?
what's her name? I can't think of her name now, right here in Texas.
Madeline
Madeline Murray O'Hara. Yeah. Now, didn't she end up in a pickle, literally?
Yeah.
She ended up in a barrel, chopped up into pieces.
Yeah,
Her son killed
just
her.
like,
No, her son didn't kill her. Her son became a Christian, which really made her mad. She was really mad about that, which goes to show you God chooses whom He will.
Yeah.
Well, I think God has a sense of humor.
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, you can't argue with that one. That made her so mad. She said, "God forgives, but I don't."
Yeah.
What a wonderful mother.
That's a great.
Wish my mother was like that.
it says 1969.
Yeah. When it is my desire, I will chasten them. People shall be gathered against them when I bind them for their double or 2 transgressions or 2 sins. If we are Israel, how might this be fulfilled today? People will be gathered against them. Anybody gathered against us? Everybody's happy, right? Everybody likes us. Nobody's being gathered against us.
And we
Well-
still give them millions and millions of dollars.
We're giving them, we're, oh, you want to kill us? Well, let us sell you some guns so you can do it more efficiently. We have lost our minds. Well, the passage that I thought of when I read that was over in Isaiah chapter 10. Woe to Assyria, rod of my anger, and staff in whose hands is my indignation. I will send him against an ungodly nation. Against the people of my wrath I will give him charge, to seize spoil, to take prey, and to tread them down in the mire like the mire of the streets. Are there any Assyrians gathered against us coming here? Guess who's coming to dinner?
Yeah.
Yes. And if Hillary is elected, she's promised to bring thousands, tens of thousands of Syrians into the country. And I would point back to Jezebel, who brought in 100 priests of Baal. I'll bet there are 1,000 priests of Islam coming with this group, coming against an ungodly nation. Isn't it interesting that it's Assyria who is the rod of my anger and the staff in whose hands is my indignation? He is bringing Assyria against Israel because of their sins, because they have neglected the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And he uses these people as they're being used as the chastisement for the people. And here, history is repeating itself again, which makes me believe that Hillary's going to be elected. And the reason that is because righteous people elect righteous leaders. wicked, ungodly people elect wicked, ungodly leaders. Ephraim is a trained heifer who loves to thresh the grain. But I harnessed his fair neck, her fair neck, and I will make Ephraim pull a plow, Judah shall plow, and Jacob shall break his clods. Treading out the grain here, by the way, loves to thresh the grain. Treading out the grain wasn't a bad job because you got to walk around in a circle. You didn't have to go pull very hard, and you were unmuzzled. So you could eat the grain as you were walking along. Not bad duty. But God says, well, no, you've had your good duty. Now you're going to have to pull the plow. This is not good. This is hard. This is tedious work. Sow for yourselves righteousness, reap in mercy, break your fallow ground, for it is time to seek the Lord till he comes and rains righteousness upon you. Well, now we're kind of shifting gears a little bit, because God has, up to this moment, has been declaring your sin, and here's the inevitable result of your sin, which is you're going to experience my wrath and my indignation. But there's coming a time in which righteousness will be rained upon you. Brings to my mind this passage over in Joel. And this first passage is from the Young's literal translation, which says, "And ye sons of Zion, rejoice and joy and rejoice in Jehovah your God, for he hath given you the teacher of righteousness, and causes to come down to you a shower, sprinkling and gathering in the beginning." Now that last part is a little awkward. Now here's the New King James. It says, "Be glad, you children of Zion, and rejoice in the Lord your God, for he has given you the former rain faithfully, and he will cause the rain to come down for you, the former rain and the latter rain in the first month." Well, the best rendering of that is, this former rain faithfully literally can be translated teacher of righteousness. And if you insert that in the bottom phrase, it reads like this: "For he has given you the teacher of righteousness, and he will cause the rain to come down for you, the former and the latter rain in the first month." The former rains and the latter rains were associated with the Jewish holy days. The latter rains were the rains of the holy days that were fulfilled at the Lord's first coming. He came as the rain. He fulfilled the Passover, unleavened bread, first fruits, and Shavuot, or the Feast of Pentecost, at his first coming. He was the Passover lamb, was sacrificed. On the 14th of Nisan, on the 15th of Nisan, was the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which ran for 7 days. During that 7-day period, the day before, or the day right after the weekly Sabbath, was called the Feast of First Fruits. Jesus, crucified on Passover, buried on unleavened bread, arose on first fruits as the first fruits of the resurrection, and on Shavuot or Pentecost, the Holy Spirit came down, dwelt among men, fulfilling the feasts associated with the latter rains. The former rains are the harvest rains, when the Lord comes, when the fields are white unto harvest, and that first holy day up on the former rains is that of Rosh Hashanah, in which the last trump blows, and the gates of heaven are opened and the righteous go marching in advance of that period of time called the Yamin Noraim, the awesome days, the days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, which absolutely are, in my estimation, a fulfillment of the tribulation period. These are many days of many awes, concluded by Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, when the feet of the Lord set down upon the Mount of Olives and it cleaves in the middle, according to Zechariah 14, and he sets up his kingdom and he rules and reigns with a rod of iron. That rod of iron that he rules and reigns with, most likely, is the church. As we read in the admonition to the church at Thyatira in the Revelation account, that they would rule with a rod of iron. Now, that brings us over to Revelation chapter 12, which I believe is the passage which will be fulfilled sometime in the very near future, when the sign of the Virgin, Virgo, is clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet. It's a particular moment in time that occurred once back in, when was it? 2 BC. That's at the conception, or actually the birth of the Lord. The next time it occurs, 2017. And I believe that it's the day after Rosh Hashanah. And I have always thought, why is it the day after Rosh? Should be right on the day. Well, guess what? In the 16th, 2016, Rosh Hashanah was delayed by 2 days because of what they call a divine sandstorm. Couldn't see the moon. I expect there's going to be a similar dilemma show up in 2017. Rosh Hashanah will be delayed a day, and then that passage in Revelation 12 will come to pass right on time, just like God had it planned. Because then it says that this man-child is caught up. Well, the man-child is, I believe, a euphemism for the church, the body of Christ. And it was caught up. Didn't use that word for Christ when he left. He used an entirely different word. He was not caught up. He ascended. Different word. This caught up word is only used in reference to the church. It was used in reference to Philip when he was on the Gaza Strip. When he was there, he baptized the eunuch, and then it says he was caught away to Azotus. And that word means he was here 1 minute and he was there the next. So it'll be, I believe, in 2017. I sure hope it will be, because I don't have anything to go on after that. I'm pretty sure that, we're running out of signs here. We're running out of time.
No one knows.
No one knows the day when his feet will set down upon the Mount of Olives. That is Matthew 24. It does not say, no one knows the rapture of the church. I will argue that one until I am blue in the face.
You better hope it's that day, because we found some rope.
So the former reigns and the latter reigns in the first month. Jesus came on Rosh Hashanah. He was born on Rosh Hashanah. It only stands to reason that he will come again on Rosh Hashanah for the church. His body came the first time in 2 BC. His body will leave the second time on 2017 if we have it right. We all, hopefully, if we live our normal life, we'll see if we got it right or not. See if I. You have plowed wickedness, you have reaped iniquity, you have eaten the fruit of lies, because you trusted in your own way in the multitude of your mighty men. Woo-hoo-hoo. I can do something with that one in the US of A. Any application here at all? Well, do we trust in our mighty men, our armies? Oh, we have strong armies, we're the only superpower. Once again, as you have heard me say, when the times of tribulation come, every man is going to be tested as to what he has his faith in. You have your faith in your money. Put it in this country. Put it in our armed forces. When the bad times come, how are you going to survive? Well, I'm going to survive because I got money stashed away and I got me a house built underground. I'm going to put my faith in my underground house. Well, what happens when your rations run out? I hope you've had longer than 7 years of rations, because if you don't, you better put your faith somewhere else. So you look at where everybody puts their faith. If your faith is not founded in the rock, you got serious troubles to look forward to, and you got to have an awful lot of faith in whatever else it is to think you're going to get through what's coming, because our sea is no good, our defenses are no good, the people that are leading us are no good. There's no good here, period. And if your faith is not in the one who acquits the guilty, you've got serious troubles. Wicked people cannot elect a righteous leader. If the people are liars, they get a liar to rule over them. If the people are adulterers, they get an adulterer to rule over them. See any comparison there? If the people think they can escape this result of their sin, they make God a liar. God has said, if you do what you're inclined to do, and if you put Baal in front of me and ignore me, even worse, or claim that I don't even exist, well, you got the books are going to balance someday here pretty quick. And so, the bottom line is, what kind of a leader do we deserve? That's why I maintain we're probably going to see Hillary elected. And I wouldn't be too good about it, because I believe this is a fulfillment of God's wrath, literally. We are going to get what we deserve. The Clinton administration and Clinton Incorporated has a history of people dying in their wake, being beaten up. They've got a history of people disappearing. They've got a history of deception, of lies, and what is it all encompassing? Money. The root of all evil. Money and power, you can say, Bernie, they're kind of the same thing. But my belief is that that's where we're headed, because a righteous people cannot elect a wicked leader. Consequently, a wicked people cannot elect a righteous leader. So I think that's where we're headed.
Go find the Clinton Chronicles.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
then
it's-
they're trying to say that the person that was saying all this on the Clinton Chronicles, just lying about it. Well, how much did he get paid to say that? You know, I mean,
Well, you will probably find him in a car accident pretty soon.
Oh, yeah.
Along with that Secret Service agent that's
Oh
been
my
on.
goodness, that poor
Yeah.
guy.
That poor guy is probably, you're gonna find him dead. His name, if you, you can remember his name, Gary Bryan.
Mm-hmm. And I'll guarantee you that when Bill Clinton met with our Attorney General in that airplane accidentally for 30 minutes talking about babies,
Coincidence. There's a coincidence.
he made her an offer she couldn't refuse. I'll guarantee it.
Stay alive.
Oh, yeah.
Stay alive.
So at any rate, moving right along, therefore tumult shall arise among your people, and your fortresses shall be plundered. Oh, see what's coming? As Shalman plundered Beth Arbel in the day of battle, a mother dashed to pieces upon her children. Ooh. This Shalman is probably a reference to Shalmaneser the fifth, who took Israel into Assyrian captivity in Psalm 22. But if that's the case, that was a prophecy, because it didn't happen in the time of Hosea. And this word Beth Arbel literally means the house of the ambush of God. Now there's another interesting phraseology. Their house of worship was literally an ambush of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It was not a support of it, it was an ambush of it. Strange words. There's this passage in Psalms 137 which popped up. I would have never found it, but what's the name of the guy? I'll think of his name anyway. But anyway, I stole this from him. It says, "Remember, O Lord, against the sons of Edom, the day of Jerusalem, who said, raise it to its very foundation." This is where the sons of Edom saw Babylon coming in, and they said, tear it down, namely talking about Jerusalem. And so they were sitting there on the sidelines, watching this whole thing happen and were, cheering on the Babylonians. And then it said, "O daughter of Babylon, who are to be destroyed, happy the one who repays you as you have served us." Now, let me finish it. And happy the one who takes and dashes your little ones against a rock. Now, you would assume in reading this that we're talking about Babylon, who invaded Israel, and they're going to get there's going to be a turnabout as fair play. In other words, you people in Edom, you were cheering them on. Well, I hope the same thing happens to you, basically. But this is a reference to the daughter of Babylon. Who is the daughter of Babylon? Well, remember, in Revelation 17, Mystery Babylon. If you look at the passages which talk about the daughter of Babylon, it's a one-to-one comparison to Mystery Babylon, and we know who Mystery Babylon is. And so this passage may very well be pointing to the destruction of Rome. And by the way, there are people in Petrus Romanus, the Pope, in his administration that believe the prophecies of Malachi are happening right now, that he is literally the last pope, and that he has heresies that he is teaching, and we know that he is teaching heresy. And so, you look at the preponderance of the evidence. It's not just one thing which makes me think we're standing here at the end of the age. I've got a whole bookload of them. And, how can anybody who's looking at this as conclude anything else? I just don't understand it.
But that's the problem. People aren't reading their Bibles and understanding it anymore.
We are
They don't care.
we are falling under the same condemnation that Jerusalem did. Because Jerusalem, you could see, you got a red sky in the morning, you know, sailor takes warning. But you have all of these prophecies, you see the signs, and you don't see the signs of the times. It was when Jesus came the first time, they were criticized because they didn't know, because they weren't looking at the signs. And we got them. And it's my job to point them out. And if you can't see them, you must be blind, because there is a bunch of them there. And this is just one of many. And this shall be done to you, O Bethel, because of your great wickedness. At dawn the king of Israel shall be cut off utterly. And just as prophesied, Israel, or Assyria, came to Israel in the middle of the night, and by dawn the next day they were in captivity. And the king, he certainly was cut off as being king. I can't find any evidence that the Assyrians actually killed him, but I'm pretty sure they did, if you know the history of the Assyrians. If you got a king that rebelled and didn't pay the tribute on time and tried to get Egypt to come in and fight you, what do you think's going to happen to that king?
Well, in Second Kings, it says that he went into prison. That's where they left it
Went into prison? Well, that sounds like Zedekiah.
at.
Hoshea?
Yeah.
Oh, you may be right. I do know that Zedekiah had his eyes put out right after he saw his sons killed before his eyes.
All they do is say they got him, put him in prison, they took him away, but they didn't say anything else.
Okay, my suspicion is prophecy was fulfilled. He was cut off. He was killed. Because the Assyrians are brutal people. And I just can't imagine they would let this guy live when he had tried, well, he was guilty of conspiring against them with Egypt. And he certainly wasn't paying his tribute like he was supposed to. So the fact that he would last more than a few milliseconds after they caught him is just amazing to me. So I'm pretty sure that, although I can't prove it, that this passage was fulfilled. And so the application to our nation might very well be that those who are in leadership, when that great day of reckoning comes, they are not going to survive either. And once again, when God comes to visit this planet with punishment, no one will escape. If you do not have faith in the Lord, you will be exiled immediately. You will be gathered. There is a rapture of the wicked, and you will be picked up and carried to Armageddon, where you will be slaughtered along with everything else that's going on there in a fulfillment of the feast day of Yom Kippur. So at any rate, this was chapter 10, the end. Now, this far in Hosea, up through chapter 10, we have seen the wickedness proclaimed, God's indictment of Israel, punishment that was foretold, and we know that punishment was met out. Now, this constitutes the wrath of God. Now we're going to see, starting with chapter 11, we're going to see the mercy of God foretold. That even though Israel failed miserably, that there was some hope on the future. And so it'll be a more hopeful message next week. Yes, any questions?
Yeah, about Hosea, and Hosea 13:11, it says, I gave you a king in my anger and took him away in my wrath. And then if you read when it's talking about him disappearing, it says he disappeared like foam upon the water.
Woo! Well, there you have it. If you don't have any other record of it, the Bible certainly says that he was taken away by God as part of his wrath. Sir.
Just a question for you. This notion that you have that Israel is now manifested in Great Britain and the U.S.,
Mm-hmm.
are there any other prophecy teachers that are onto that as yet that you know of?
Yes, there are. I'm not the only one. Some of them take a different slant to it, which I think they're getting off in deep water. But there are some, a great many of, well, what I try to do is filter out all of the the flotsam and jetsam that's in prophecy and bring the stuff that I think I can justify, which is, once again, which satisfies me. What you're getting here, of course, is what satisfies me. May not satisfy you, but satisfies me, and so I'm willing to stick my neck out on it. And so there are others who they get off into this British Israel business and make conclusions that are not supported by the evidence, in my honest opinion. I think they're trying to make a new religion out of it. They're trying to take you back into living under the law because you are from the tribe of Israel, well, or from the nation of Israel. Therefore, you should be keeping the law. No. It says in Hosea, in the place where you have gone, you will be like the sands of the sea. In a place where you are said, you are not my sons, it shall be said, you are the sons of the living God. Well, I think we have figured out who the sons of the living God are. That's the church. And here we are. But we are in the midst of an Israel that's in rebellion against God. And this necessitates, because of the nature of God, that he deal with this situation with his wrath. And then, of course, the question is, will you destroy the righteous along with the wicked? And of course, that he will not. Something has to happen to the church so that we are out of the road of his wrath, and we know what that is. That's called the rapture of the church. So what I try to bring to you in these lessons is the evidence that most people won't talk about, because, like I said, they get off into this British Israel thing, and you lose all credibility. But I don't think you have to go that far. In fact, I know you don't. All you have to do is look at what Hosea, the prophecy, said, look at where our country is, and you can make a comparison there, and you have to come up with a conclusion of, how does this apply to us when it was talking to Israel? Well, I've gone through the logic for you. You know, Jonathan Cahn, who made the argument about the nine, what is it, the nine, what? Harbingers, the nine harbingers, you know. He tried to say, well, this applies to us because we're kind of like the nation of Israel. But he couldn't tie the two together. Well, I've tied the two together for you. It's why that passage in Isaiah 9:10 applies to our nation. So once again, what we try to deal with here is things you're not going to hear anywhere else. And you get to decide for yourself whether you like it, accept it, think there's enough evidence or not. But there is little doubt that our nation is falling under judgment. And the evidence you can see in our leadership, where we are taking Islamics out of Islamic countries and protecting them from other Islamics and leaving Christians there to be slaughtered by genocide. So it's just a bizarre time.
Or, you can, we're paying millions of dollars to help refugees, our veterans that serve this country are on the street.
Yeah.